Before humans ruled the Earth, there were dinosaurs. Giant reptilian death machines that made modern-day apex predators look like they belong in a petting zoo. So let's bring them back to life and put them on an island with a bunch of dumb tourists, right? What could possibly go wrong? Turns out a lot, actually, because T-Rex doesn't give a damn about your photo op. And as soon as those fences go down, she's about to teach these nerds what it's like to be back at the bottom of the food chain. But don't worry, Meat Shield, because we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat every single dinosaur in all three parts of the original Jurassic Park trilogy. These future chicken nuggets are about to strike back. It's late at night somewhere on a remote tropical island, and a team of heavily armed guards circle around as they load a giant steel cage onto this platform. A sense of tension hangs in the air as they follow their leader's instructions down to every word. They've done this before, but something about tonight feels different, and that's when disaster strikes. All of a sudden, the beast inside charges forward, crashing against the gate as a worker tumbles into the opening. Their only choice is to shoot her as he's violently dragged into the cage, but it's already too late, and he's completely torn apart before anyone else can stop it. Okay, there is absolutely no way this was in the job description. This guy just got mauled by arguably the most dangerous animal in the park, an adult Velociraptor. But let's get one thing out of the way first. These raptors look absolutely nothing like what they did in real life. In reality, Velociraptors were only about 2 feet tall and around 30-something pounds, making them about the size of a turkey. Meanwhile, the raptors we're dealing with here are closer to 6 feet tall and 300 pounds of pure muscle, like a killer ostrich that craves human flesh. They're described as some of the fastest land animals to ever exist, with speed and acceleration similar to a cheetah. But these raptors are nearly twice a cheetah's weight, meaning they'd need insanely powerful legs to match that kind of speed. So even in the short length of the cage, it's not surprising that it was able to generate enough force to send the whole thing rolling back on its tracks. Now, knowing how dangerous the raptor could be, they overlooked so many safety concerns here that it's almost laughable. First off, they should have made sure that the animal was well fed and used a combination of low-dose sedatives and cooling techniques to slow it down. They could have even refrigerated the cage itself, lowering the raptor's body temperature just enough to dull its reflexes and seduce the chances of a sudden attack. But the biggest flaw of all was that the cage only used one set of locks to keep it in place. If they were thinking about safety, then the cage should have been firmly clamped down before they ever opened the gate, with wedges in place to stop the wheels from rolling back. And obviously, there was no need to have this guy physically opening the gate by hand. It would have been much safer to use a remote-operated system instead, and kept the workers behind an additional layer of protection, which is all that it would have taken to save this poor lad's life. A few days later, this child-hating paleontologist, Dr. Alan Grant, is putting the fear of raptors into some snot-nosed brat when he gets an unexpected visit from their biggest financier, the ultra-wealthy businessman John Hammond. The man makes him an offer that he can't refuse, promising to fund his research for another 3 years. If he and his girlfriend, paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, will help settle a small disagreement with his investors. The next thing they know, they're boarding a helicopter headed to his one-of-a-kind biological preserve on a private island somewhere in Costa Rica. But in just a matter of hours, they're gonna realize that, coming here was their biggest mistake. They're joined by the investor's lawyer, Donald Girano, and Dr. Ian Malcolm, a dripped-out mathematician who studies chaos theory. You see, after the incident with the dead worker, Hammond's investors are on his ass to make sure that the park is safe for the public, and he's relying on the experts here to give their seal of approval. After a bit of a rough landing, they get into a pair of stylish Jeeps and drive deeper into the island, until Hammond suddenly brings them to a stop in the middle of a large clearing. It takes Dr. Grant just a minute to notice, but he can't believe his eyes when he sees why they've stopped. Because standing right in front of them is a 40-foot-tall Brachiosaurus from the Jurassic period, a living, breathing dinosaur that was supposed to have gone extinct over 150 million years ago. They're basically amazed, and the doctors immediately get out for a closer look, and off in the distance, they spot entire herds of dinosaur grazing by the edge of a lake. It's the most incredible thing they've ever seen, and Hammond promises that the tour is just getting started, but they have absolutely no idea how terrifying things are about to get. Alright, this is already incredibly unsafe, but they're too amazed to see the danger staring at them right in the face. Dino they've just met is a giant plant eater, which is probably why they don't see it as a threat, but they never even stopped to consider how it might react to them. The danger here comes from the same reason why a giant African elephant could be frightened by something as small as a mouse in the wild. Large herbivores usually have an incredibly strong startle response. Because when you spend all day on the lookout for predators, being paranoid, it keeps you alive. That's why visitors to places like Yellowstone National Park are warned to stay at least 25 yards away from bison and other large plant eaters. Because one wrong move could lead them to getting trampled before they even know what happened, and if Grant and Sadler were actually thinking about safety, then they'd be following the same rules here. All it would take is one stomp or tail whip to flatten them both like pancakes, so it's absolutely insane that Hammond just rolled right up on this monster like it's harmless as a baby deer. It's a clear sign that their host has no idea what the hell he's doing, and as the dinosaur experts, they should have seen the danger coming from like a mile away. Not to mention, the whole reason why they're here in the first place is because a worker was just killed by one of these things a few days ago. To me, it's giving the same energy as the Titan submersible. After hearing that he has a freaking T-Rex on the island, I'd be telling Hammond to get me the hell out of here, boy, before it's too late. Their next stop is the park's visitor center, where Hammond brings them inside for a glimpse behind the magic. The tour begins with a scripted ride where the iconic Mr. DNA explains how they brought the dinos back to life. Basically, it starts by gathering dino DNA from ancient mosquitoes preserved in amber of all things. Then they simply fill in the blanks with DNA from a modern-day frog, and boom, a baby dino is born. The ride spins around to show a brief view of the laboratory, but the doctors are so interested that they decide to take a look for themselves. As luck would have it, they arrive just in time to see one of the eggs about to hatch. But the scientists insist that the dinosaurs can't breed on their own because they're all female. But Malcolm here warns them not to be so sure, pointing out that life, finds a way. As he looks closer, Grant realizes that he's holding a baby Velociraptor, and his expression suddenly changes to a look of deep concern. He insists on seeing the place where they're keeping the grown-ups, getting there just as they hoist a live cow into the cage. Then there's this violent thrashing in the ferns as the raptors brutally rip the animal to shreds, and Grant watches in horror as he begins to realize just how dangerous this place really is. This guy, Robert Muldoon, is the park's warden and has hunted every man-eater on the face of the earth, and he's never seen an animal as deadly as this. But as usual, Hammond swears that it's all perfectly fine. After lunch, it's time for the real tour to begin, and Dr. Grant is absolutely horrified to learn that they'll be joined by Hammond's two grandkids, Lex and Tim. The vehicles set off along a guided rail, automatically following the route as they pass through the gates into the heart of the park, basically glued to the windows as they approach the first pen. But their excitement quickly turns to disappointment as they realize they can't see a damn thing through the dense vegetation. Up ahead, they finally come to the island's main attraction, the T-Rex paddock. But just like before, it seems like the dino's a little camera shy. Hammond even tries luring it out with a fresh goat, but the bait, it doesn't work, and they're just about to move on when Grant notices a dino in distress off to the side of the trail. Rushing over, he finds a Triceratops that's struggling with an unknown illness, and it's their first chance to really get up close and personal with one of the adults. After going elbow deep in the actual poop emoji, Sadler decides that she wants to stay with the vet, splitting up from the others as they head back to the trucks. There's a tropical storm nearing the coast, and Hammond wants everyone back inside before the weather gets too dangerous, but little do they know that it's already too late. Okay, somebody really needs to teach these boneheads to keep their arms and legs inside the ride. They're so distracted by the injured Triceratops that they've completely forgotten about the freaking T-Rex on the other side of the fence. And it's actually an even more dangerous situation than they think. Now, everyone knows that the T-Rex was one of the greatest super predators to ever live, and fossil evidence shows that it often hunted Triceratops for food. That doesn't mean that it was an easy kill. These rhinos on steroids specifically evolved to counter T-Rex in every way, with 3 massive horns at the front of their heads and a solid bone frill protecting their necks. A healthy adult Triceratops would be an extremely dangerous target, even for a full-grown Rex, but T-Rex wasn't just a hunter, it was also a scavenger that's not gonna pass up a free meal. In nature, predators like T-Rex kill to survive, so they're always looking for the most efficient meal with the least amount of risk. That's why hunters like lions, hyenas, and wolves already target the injured members in a herd first. For a T-Rex, the sound of a wounded Triceratops would be like somebody ringing the dinner bell, and right now they're standing between a 15,000-pound death machine and its favorite food. Yeah, they might be safe as long as the electric fence holds up, but just ask Dr. Malcolm here and he can tell you that anything can happen. That's why personally, I would have never gotten out of the damn truck. If the dinosaur experts had seen the danger and kept it moving, then they'd already be safe back at the visitor center. But pretty soon, this little pit stop is about to cost somebody their life. Now, Hammond's not the only one who's interested in cloning dinosaurs, and this entire time, the park's computer programmer, Dennis, has secretly been working on a plan of his own. He's gonna wait until everyone's distracted and then activate a program that unlocks the storage area, allowing him to sneak inside and start taking frozen embryos. After that, he's got just a 15-minute window to reach the docks, where his contact from a rival company is waiting with the bread. But getting there, it's not gonna be as easy as he thinks. The others are just pulling away from the paddock when their trucks suddenly come to a stop. Back at the headquarters, they realize that the electric fences are down all over the park. But with no sign of a programmer, there's nothing that they can do to fix it. They're stranded with no way to get the trucks moving, and that's when they begin to feel giant footsteps shaking the ground. Looking outside, they realize that the goat is gone, and suddenly one of its severed legs drops down onto the glass roof, and the enormous Tyrannosaurus slowly rises out of the trees just on the other side of the fence. Well, the dumbass lawyer here immediately panics and takes off running towards the nearby bathroom, leaving the kids to fend for themselves. Curious, the T-Rex pulls on the fence, but as soon as it realizes that the power is off, there's nothing left to stop it from tearing it down and setting itself free. Grant here warns Malcolm to stay perfectly still as the monster circles around their truck, and it seems like it's working until Lex here starts shining a flashlight through the back window. Her brother shouts at the girl to shut it off as the dinosaurs start nudging them with its nose. But by then, it's already too late, and they're caught by surprise when the T-Rex slams its head straight through the glass roof. Luckily for them, the dinosaur still can't reach them, but it flips the entire truck out of frustration, stomping down on top of it as the inside fills with mud. Realizing that he has to do something, Grant lights a flare and gets the beast's attention, before tossing it back into the paddock like a dog chasing after a stick. But just when it looks like his plan might have worked, Malcolm here decides that now it's his turn to be a hero, lighting another flare and leading the T-Rex straight towards the bathrooms. He dives to safety just in time, getting knocked unconscious in the process, but as for the lawyer, the place collapses all around him until he's just sitting there on the toilet with nowhere left to run, and there's nothing he can do as the T-Rex chomps down on his head and starts ripping him apart like a chew toy. Hey, okay, buddy got caught with his pants down. The lawyer here just broke Grant's #1 rule, never run from a T-Rex, because his vision is based on motion. Now, since 1993, when the movie was filmed, evidence has shown that T-Rex most likely had great eyesight, which somehow makes them even scarier, but with that being said, there's actually a reason why this T-Rex is different. Remember, these aren't real dinosaurs, they're genetic hybrids that use frog DNA to fill in the gaps, right? Interestingly enough, frogs actually do have motion-based vision, causing them to completely ignore motionless prey. This could explain why Grant's strategy seems to work. So as terrifying as a situation like this would be, the best thing that they could have done was stay absolutely still and hope that the T-Rex finally moved on. Now, thanks to the lawyer blowing their cover, Grant was forced to get involved, but his plan to distract the T-Rex almost worked until Malcolm decided to join in. At least this gives them a chance to use the lawyer as a meat shield, but if they try to escape right away, then the movement will just draw the Rex straight to them. And that's why instead, what they need to do is stay completely silent and hope that it gets distracted and moves on. There is absolutely no way that they can fight back on their own, but just past the kid's truck, there's a hole in the fence that leads to a drop over a huge cliff. All right, meat shields, it's time to talk about something serious. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, car, work, or jigsaw related, you might not realize the true value of your injury. In fact, you could actually be eligible for millions of dollars in compensation. Now, here's something crucial to understand. Insurance companies often try to take advantage of people in these situations, offering settlements that are far less than what you deserve. I mean, can you believe that? But Morgan & Morgan, yeah, they don't play that game. They fight to get you the money you're rightfully owed if you become their client. I mean, just in the past couple of months, they've secured incredible verdicts for clients in life-altering car crash cases. $12 million in Florida, which was 34 times the highest insurance offer, and $26 million in Philadelphia, a staggering 40 times their initial offer. And the best part? You don't pay a single penny in attorney's fees unless they win your case. That's right, the fee is absolutely free unless you win. Look, all law firms are not created equal. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm for a reason. With over 1,000 attorneys across all 50 states, they've built a reputation on winning like a lot. Fighting big insurance companies can take a big law firm, and they are ready to take on companies of any size to protect your rights. It only takes a few minutes to find out if you even have a case, so don't overthink it. If you've been in an accident or suffered any injury, taking action now is the smartest thing you can do to protect yourself. Morgan & Morgan have even modernized the entire process. You can submit a claim and communicate with their legal team directly from your smartphone. It's just that easy. If you've suffered a serious injury, your case could be worth significant compensation, and a life-changing resolution could be just a few clicks away. It's simple to get started. You can begin your claim with Morgan & Morgan now at forthepeople.com/beat or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Remember, you guys don't have to go through this one alone. Thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, let's get back to the show. Now, as a last resort, Grant could try luring the T-Rex into charging after him before diving out of the way at the last second, tricking it into falling over the edge. Obviously, it's a massive, massive long shot, but with no other way to defend themselves, they're gonna have to get creative if they want to survive here. Grant only has time to help Lex before the dinosaur comes back, leaving her brother still trapped under the truck as the T-Rex starts pushing it around, looking for a way to reach him. It gets to a point where their only choice is to climb over the wall and hang onto one of the cables, swinging out of the way just in time as the truck plummets over the edge and comes to a stop in the trees right below them. Meanwhile, Dennis here is still booking it towards the docks when he accidentally drives straight off the trail, causing his Jeep to get stuck in the mud. He grabs the winch and goes looking for a place to tie it off, but just when he turns to head back up the hill, he's confronted by a baby Dilophosaurus that refuses to leave him alone. All of a sudden, the dinosaur rattles its frilled neck and spits a blast of toxic goo straight into his eyes, blinding him as he reaches for the door. He's about to get inside just in time, or that's what he thinks, but when he looks over, he realizes that the dino already beat him to it, and there's nothing that he can do as it lunges for his throat. Okay, I guess Nedry here is gonna miss that boat after all. This guy thought he was the smartest guy on the island, but he just got clapped by a rectangle with a brain the size of a walnut. And when that happens, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one thing left to say. Nedry, my boy, it looks like you just f***ed up. Like, it's already bad enough that the best plan you could come up with was driving across a dino-infested island after shutting down every fence in the park. And the crazy thing is that you almost got away with it, but you made one fatal mistake. That little freak of nature wasn't sure if it was gonna attack until after you decided to put on your hood. And that was the moment that ultimately got you 86th. You see, this dino here had a frilled neck, just like some species of snakes and lizards. In nature, those frills are used for intimidation and dominance displays, which is why never mind. So when your dumbass put on a bright yellow hood, you pretty much challenged it to a fight to the death, and I don't think anyone's surprised by who ended up winning that one. This is probably why you should have just stuck to your day job, because Nedry, you just f***ed up. Back in the T-Rex pen, Grant manages to find little Tommy here stranded high up in a tree. Luckily, he's still alive, but as Grant reaches out to help him, his truck suddenly comes loose, leaving them no choice but to start climbing back down as fast as they can. I mean, it's a close call, but the two of them reach the bottom with only seconds to spare, and the tree's massive roots save them just before they're crushed. On the trail up above, Saddler and Warden arrive on the scene where they find an injured Malcolm and load him up in the back of their Jeep. Saddler spots the other truck at the bottom of the cliff, but by the time that she gets there, Grant and the kids are already long gone. And it sounds like the T-Rex is headed their way. Sure enough, she makes it back to the Jeep just as the giant chicken blasts through the trees and starts chasing after them. The Warden steps on the gas as the beast keeps gaining on them with every step, but it finally gives up and leaves them alone, disappearing back into the jungle as they speed away. As for the others, they decide to post up in a tree and wait until sunrise, but they've still got a long way to go before they're safe. And just the very next morning, Grant and the kids get back on the trail while their friends at the visitor center discuss their options. They can't figure out how to get around Nedry's code, so Hammond decides that their only choice is to shut down the whole system and force a manual reset. It's risky, but the plan actually works. Only now they still need to flip the circuit breakers to get the power back on. But those are located in a separate building on the other side of the compound. Thinking that it should be a piece of cake, the chief engineer Ray volunteers to take care of it while the others hang back. Back outside, the others are crossing an open field where they see a herd of Gallimimus running straight towards them, forcing them to take cover behind a fallen tree just as the herd rushes past, but they're able to quietly sneak away while it's distracted. Sheesh! Okay, that was a pretty damn close call, but it also teaches us something interesting. Grant pointed out that the herbivores travel in flocks like birds, and since these walking KFCs used to avoid T-Rex on the daily, they developed specially tuned senses, allowing them to detect predators before us puny humans even know that they're around. Now, as we can see, T-Rex was fast, able to reach a top speed of around 20 miles per hour fast, so you stand absolutely no chance of outrunning one on the open plain. The good news is it just had a meal, which might slow it down, at least for a little while, but they still have a long way to go before they reach safety. If I were Grant here, I'd stick to the forest and dense vegetation. T-Rex preferred open terrain since it was difficult for it to move through the thick jungle. They need to stay low, move slowly, and keep an eye out for any signs of danger. And if any herds of herbivores happen to be going in the same direction, they could use them as mobile meat shields and early threat detection systems. Now, if worst comes to worst and the T-Rex attacks, then what they need to do is stick together, immediately break its line of sight, and find somewhere to hide where the dino can't reach, like inside of a cave or between some dense trees. Fighting back will never work, but if they have absolutely no other choice, then they can try luring it towards unstable terrain or a steep drop, and using the Rex's own momentum against it, right? Like if it falls on its side, it's gonna take a while before he gets back up, and that could give them another chance to get away. Back at the visitor center, they begin to worry that their friend has been gone for far too long, so Saddler and the Warden decide to set out and find him. Grabbing a badass shotgun, he starts leading the way over to the shed, but everything changes when they realize that the raptors escape from their cage. They've almost made it to the gate when he whispers at Saddler to freeze, so he tells the doctor to run while he stays outside to hold off the raptors. There's no sign of the engineer anywhere in sight, but with some help from her friends at the visitor center, she's able to find the main circuit breaker. Finally, she's able to get all of the security systems back online, but just when she's getting ready to celebrate, a damn raptor smashes its head through the cables, forcing her to run for her life. Stumbling backwards, she's relieved when Ray puts his hand over her shoulder till she realizes that it's just his severed arm. It's about to catch her at any second, but she makes it outside and slams the door just in time, leaving that one trapped, at least for now. Elsewhere, the Warden is still on the hunt, and he spots one of the raptors in the bushes just a few feet away. But just when he's about to take the shot, its friend hits him with an ambush from the side, and the man accepts his fate as it pounces on top of him faster than he can react. This is when Grant and the kids make it back to the visitor center, and he leaves them to wait in the cafeteria while he goes to find Dr. Sattler. It seems like they're finally safe, but while they're digging into some leftover desserts, they notice a shadow on the other side of the wall. And it looks like the raptors have already gotten inside. Alright, I guess the Raptors just decided that Hammond's grandkids are on the menu. The matchup of two little kids versus two 6-foot-tall death machines does not look promising, so their only hope is to exploit any weaknesses that they can find. Now, the Raptors have them beat in every category except for one. The kids are small enough to get into areas where they can't reach, so I'd look for a vent, a crawl space, and pray that they'd eventually go away to hunt something else. There's absolutely nothing that they can do to fight one themselves, but the Raptors have been known to turn on each other, so as a last resort, they could try distracting them with a juicy piece of meat from the kitchen and hope that they start fighting amongst themselves instead. That being said, we know that there are only 3 of them out there, so every one that you can take down dramatically decreases the overall threat. And that's why the Warden's biggest mistake was not blowing the Raptor's head smooth off when he had the chance. In real-world predators like wolves, the pack will often fall back if one of their hunters is suddenly killed because it shows that their prey is more dangerous than they thought. So if Muldoon had fired as soon as he had the shot, he might have scared the other one into backing off, or at least given himself a chance to switch targets before it attacked. These Raptors also have a hierarchy, and the one that's currently locked in the shed is their leader, but she's also their biggest vulnerability. Even with a semi-auto shotgun, you'd never stand a chance against all 3 of them at once, so if that happens, the key is to take down the big one first because it might just cause the others to panic, buying you another chance to escape. Thinking quickly, they decide to take cover in the kitchen, but it doesn't take long before the dinosaurs figure out how to open the door. And nudging their way inside, they start searching around for a kid's meal, while little Timmy and his sister can't do anything else but hide. Seeing an opportunity, Timmy lures one into chasing him into the walk-in freezer where it slips on the icy floor, and they're able to lock the beast inside before it can escape. Running back to the lobby, they find the doors and rush down to the control room, but the security system is still down, leaving them with no way to lock the door. Sure enough, one of the Raptors shows up and starts trying to break in, forcing Grant and Sadler to hold the door. But lucky for them, it's a Unix system, and Lex knows her way around a computer, and she's able to activate the locks at the last second. Grabbing the phone, Grant calls Hammond to let him know that they're in trouble, but that's when the Raptors start coming straight through the windows. Their only choice is to climb up into the drop ceiling, leading them to a bunch of scaffolding high above the atrium. Now the only way down is to climb along the giant skeletons themselves, but one of the Raptors jumps from the balcony and sends them all crashing to the ground. Scrambling to their feet, they realize that they're surrounded, but just when it looks like they're done for, the T-Rex comes in from absolutely out of nowhere and destroys the first Raptor before it even knows what happened. This gives Grant and the others a chance to run for the door just as Hammond pulls up in a Jeep, making it to the helipad just as a chopper arrives to pick them up, and it looks like they all learned a very important lesson. Studying fossils is a lot more fun if they stay dead. But little do they know that the reign of the dinosaurs is far from over. After a successful cover-up by Hammond's company, another 4 years go by without any trouble, until one day a wealthy couple anchors their yacht near a different island about 100 miles southwest from Jurassic Park. They're just setting up for a picnic when their daughter insists on going for a walk by herself, but she hasn't even gone that far before she runs into something incredibly strange. It's a tiny dinosaur about the size of a chicken, and the girl offers it a bite of her sandwich thinking that it's gotta be harmless, right? But before she knows it, she's surrounded by an entire pack of the little and hearing her screams, the girl's parents quickly rush over just in time to save her. Alright, well, there's nothing like being attacked by a bunch of tiny extinct demons to really start the vacation off right. I hope they didn't spend all their money on the yacht because now they're gonna need it for their kids' therapy bills, but the truth is that she's lucky to be alive. These little freaks of nature are a species of dinosaur known as the Compsognathus, or compies for short. Unlike their much larger cousin, the T-Rex, compies were only about 2 feet long and weighed about 7 pounds, making them roughly the size of a big chicken. But they were still meat eaters, with mouths full of sharp, needle-like teeth. Now, when the first compy approached her, it wasn't even sure if it was going to attack yet, and it wasn't until after she gave it a bite of her food that everything changed. She didn't know it, but feeding the dino was a sign of weakness, and this emboldened the rest of its friends to come check her out. Naturally, the girl started panicking, and when they realized she wasn't going to fight back, this triggered their predatory response, causing them to go from curious to dangerous. Instead, what you'd want to do is start slowly backing away while making yourself look as big as possible, and shouting at the dinosaurs in a deep, confident voice. Yeah, if you have to throw the sandwich, throw it far away into the forest. That way it's serving as a distraction instead of an appetizer. And don't hesitate to punt one of them back into extinction if they get too close. But overall, these should be one of the easier dinos to survive. A few weeks later, Dr. Ian Malcolm receives an unexpected summons from his old friend John Hammond, who tells him about a mysterious second location known as Site B. It's where his bioengineering company InGen first created the dinosaurs before moving them to the park, but eventually they were forced to abandon the island during a hurricane, leaving the dinosaurs behind to live on their own. You see, he's been keeping it safe from human interaction ever since, but after the incident with the tourists, he was forced to resign from his position as CEO, allowing his money-grubbing nephew Ludlow to take control of the company. You see, now the nephew wants to go round up some of the dinosaurs and bring them back to make a profit. Hammond here put together a team of his own and sent them out to photograph and document the dinosaurs in their natural habitat, hoping to get enough public support to have the place designated as a natural preserve. He was hoping that Malcolm here would join, but of course, the doctor is too smart to go anywhere near that island ever again. Until, that is, he hears that his girlfriend, paleontologist Dr. Sarah Harding, is already there. After meeting the rest of Hammond's team, they travel by a boat to the second island, and it doesn't take long before they find Sarah's bag near a shallow creek. In fact, there's no sign of her anywhere, but that's when they hear something huge rustling in the trees. It's a herd of Stegosaurus, and sure enough, they find Sarah nearby, excitedly photographing their behavior. Malcolm tries to warn her that it's dangerous, but she insists on getting a close-up of one of the babies, until suddenly it gets frightened by the noise from her camera. Within seconds, she's completely surrounded by the rest of the herd, forcing her to dive out of the way, but luckily they're just trying to scare her off, and after making sure that she's not a threat, they quickly scatter back into the forest. Alright, somebody needs to tell Dora the Explorer here that they're not in Kansas anymore. The dinos that she just encountered are plant eaters, sure, but they're still incredibly dangerous. The stegos here are absolutely massive, coming in at around 30 feet long, 11 feet tall, and weighing somewhere between 5 to 7 tons. Now, as big as they are, they seem safe because they don't actively hunt humans, but that's where Sarah made her biggest mistake. You see, stegos aren't territorial like carnivores, but they would absolutely defend their temporary nesting spots, and any wildlife expert would know that approaching a baby herbivore is one of the most idiotic things that you could possibly do. Now, not only could a stego squash you like a bug, but they also came equipped with a 14-foot-long tail, which had 4 3-foot-long spikes at the end that they used to defend themselves from predators. One good hit would instantly turn you into jelly. Ouch. But Sarah's choice to approach the nest was the only reason that they decided to attack. Otherwise, they would have stayed perfectly peaceful. For somebody who's spent her entire career photographing wild animals, Sarah should know this better than anyone. And it just goes to show that she's not fully respecting the danger here. If she wants to live, she needs to stop treating this place like a petting zoo and get the hell off this island before she winds up on the freaking menu. When they get back to camp, they're surprised to find that somebody started a fire while they were gone, and that's when they learn that Malcolm's daughter Kelly here secretly hitched a ride in one of the trailers. Furious, he immediately starts looking for a way to get them a ride off the island, suggesting that the others should get out of there too, when suddenly they notice a squad of military-style helicopters flying overhead, but these guys aren't here to save the day. It's a team of mercenaries hired by Ludlow to track down and capture some dinosaurs for his new park back in the States. They don't waste any time getting to work, using using dirt bikes and some pretty badass off-road vehicles to start rounding up any specimens that they can catch. The dinos put up a good fight, but these plant eaters are no match for modern technology, and the others can only watch as they inhumanely wrestle the animals into submission. While his men are setting up the camp, the group's leader, expert big game hunter Roland Tembo, discovers an enormous three-toed footprint in the mud. You see, he's not in this for the money. All he wants is a chance to hunt down the most dangerous animal that's ever lived, which would be a fully grown male T-Rex, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make his dreams finally come true. Following the trail, they eventually come to a nest where they find a baby T-Rex without its parents, and Roland sees it as the perfect chance to make the adults come to him. Meanwhile, Malcolm and the others sneak to the edge of the Mercenaries camp, and that's when their photographer Nick reveals that he's there for more than just taking pictures. He's actually a member of a radical environmentalist group, and knowing that his nephew's team might beat them to the island, Hammond gave him orders to set the dinosaurs free. Sneaking into the base, they start quietly opening the cages without anyone noticing, releasing the captured dinosaurs while the soldiers are all distracted. At the same time, Ludlow here is giving a live presentation to his investors when a damn Triceratops suddenly crashes straight through the wall, and everything breaks out into total anarchy as the dinosaurs start rummaging through the camp. In the middle of all this chaos, Nick comes across the baby T-Rex tied to the ground, noticing that the hunters intentionally broke its leg. Determined to save its life, he sets it free and carries it back to the truck, ignoring Sarah's warning as she tells him that it's way too risky. Alright, this is just like Sarah's mistake from earlier, except somehow it's like a cajillion times worse. Right now, this baby T-Rex is emitting a high-pitched call that its parents can hear from literally miles away, and since they were so close to the nest, they know that they're well within the adult's core territory. In large predator species like bears, lions, and even crocodiles, the parents almost always stay within earshot of their young, so by the time that Nick got to him, it's safe to assume that mom and dad were already on their way. Now, Dr. Ian Malcolm here has his own kid to worry about, which means that he's got the next 5 minutes to get his daughter as far away from the baby Rex as possible. And the way I see it, he's got like two options here. Plan A is to take the baby Rex back to the Mercenaries camp. This gives them a chance to use the guys with guns as meat shields, but there are two problems with this idea. Nick and Sarah, I just know they ain't gonna go for it. And they're already covered in the baby's scent, which means that even if they try to return it, the parents might still hunt them down to remove the threat. Then you got plan B, which would be to get Kelly in a Jeep, drive back to the mercenary camp, apologize for the big misunderstanding, and hope that they'll still be nice enough to offer them a ride back to the USA. They might be a bunch of inhumane a-holes, but personally I'd rather take my chances with them than be caught by the adult Rexes. Now, if you'll remember earlier, Eddie showed off his fancy air rifle loaded with an incredibly deadly neurotoxin, designed to take down even something as big as a T-Rex. Before leaving, I'd grab the rifle and a few darts. That way, he can still defend himself if worse comes to worse. He would just have to aim for the vascular areas like the neck, chest, and thighs, where the dart would be the most effective. Now, before poor Malcolm here even knows what happened, his friends come rushing into the trailer carrying the baby death machine itself in their arms. Realizing that it's only a matter of time before this goes south, he quickly takes his daughter over to Eddie the engineer, and the three of them decide to take cover using a hide lifted high up in the trees. Sure enough, they hear a very angry T-Rex coming their way, and Malcolm tries using the phone to warn the others, but of course they're too busy with the baby to pick up. Worried, he decides to climb back down to warn them himself, even though his daughter begs him not to go. Running as fast as he can, he races back to the trailer knowing that the parents will be there at any second, but it's already too late. And suddenly they realize that they're surrounded by two adult Rexes peering in through the windows. Instead of attacking, it seems like they're only searching for their baby, so after putting its leg in a soft cast, they nervously open the door and release it back to its parents, hoping that will be enough to send them away. For a second, it looks like the plan actually worked, but just as the others are starting to rub it in his face, the trailer is suddenly hit with a devastating impact as the dinosaurs flip the entire thing onto its roof. Oh yeah, there's nothing that they can do but hold on as they push the trailer over the edge of the cliff, leaving them dangling over a deadly drop into the water below. Losing her grip, Sarah falls to the bottom with nothing besides the glass window between her and the waves. Breaking from the pressure, the glass begins to crack with every agonizing moment that goes by, until at the last possible second, Malcolm manages to save her just in time. Oh, but they're not safe yet. Up above, Eddie comes back with one of the trucks and throws down a rope, giving them something to hold on to as he tries using the winch to pull them back up. Jumping into his truck, he throws it in reverse and puts the pedal to the floor, using every bit of its power to stop the trailer from going over. But that's when the Rexes suddenly come back and start tearing the vehicle apart. Terrified, he tries reaching for the dart gun to protect himself, but it's way too late, and he's brutally ripped in half as the dinosaurs decide to split the meal. Thanks to their friend, the others are able to get to safety, but when they finally reach the edge of the cliff, they're immediately taken prisoner by Roland and his group of mercenaries, who bring them back to their base camp for questioning. With all of their equipment destroyed, they need a way to call for a ride off the island, and Ludlow mentions an old engine building that should have a working radio. The only problem is they'll have to go straight through the heart of Raptor territory to reach it. They're also worried that the Rexes might come back now that they see them as a threat, but it looks like their only choice is to reach the facility, so Roland orders his men to pack up and head into the jungle on foot. Alright, this ain't gonna be easy, but at least they have the benefit of knowing what dinos they might encounter besides the herbivores. The T-Rexes and Raptors should be the only major threats on the island, so we can start by using what we know about their behaviors to come up with a strat. For the Rexes, we don't know exactly what their daily schedules were like, but evidence suggests that they were most active at dusk and dawn. This means that right now is a good time to move because it's outside of the Rex's typical hunting hours, and they should be pretty tired from attacking the trailer. Now, T-Rex actually has an incredible sense of smell, and Sarah's main concern is that the adults will keep tracking them because they see the group as a threat. So before going anywhere, they need to hide their scent first. To start, I'd get rid of any clothes that have the baby's scent on them, and leave them somewhere in the opposite direction of where they're headed as a distraction. Then everyone needs to roll around in the mud and vegetation for a while as a way to mask their scent with the smell of the environment around them. If the Rexes come back, Malcolm's group can use the mercenaries as meat shields until they find some thick trees or like a cave to hide in like we mentioned before. Sounds simple, right? But the Rexes are only half of the problem. They still have to deal with the Raptors too, and those little freaks can be even more dangerous. To make matters worse, their only path leads right through the heart of their territory. But Roland's men happen to literally be a small army, so if anyone stands a chance of making it there in one piece, it's definitely them. The group should travel in a staggered formation with teams of like 3 or 4 guards at the front, rear, and sides, arming those guys with night vision and at least 1 shotgun per team. If the Raptors attack, they need to immediately circle up and stand their ground, just like real-life herbivores in the wild. The key here is to stick together, because if they're able to take a few of them down, then the Raptors might retreat, but if they panic and split up, then they'll all be as good as dead. They make it through the night without any trouble, and at sunrise, everyone stops for a quick break. Well, this idiot Stark here wanders off from the group to go take a leak somewhere, but that right there was his biggest mistake. Suddenly he's taken by surprise when one of the tiny green dinos jumps out of a bush, but as he turns around to go back towards the camp, he realizes that he is now completely lost. Panicking, he accidentally tumbles over the edge of the cliff, and within a matter of seconds, he's completely swarmed by the pack as they start ripping at his flesh with their tiny little mouths full of razor-sharp teeth. He's eventually able to fight them off, but the creatures refuse to leave him alone, while back at the camp, the others pack up and leave without noticing that he's gone. Desperate, he stumbles up the creek until he finally can't go on any longer, and crawling behind a log, there's nothing that he can do to defend himself as they swarm in for the kill. It isn't until the next time they stop that Roland notices the man is missing and doubles back to search for him, returning again sometime after nightfall to inform the others that the man is dead. They don't have much farther to go before they reach the compound, so he says that they'll head out again after 1 more hour of rest, but there's something even worse coming their way. Just as Malcolm is headed back to the tent, he feels the ground begin to shake as the angry Rexes finally sniff out their camp. Horrified, Sarah turns off the lamp as one of the monsters pushes its snout through the flap and starts sniffing at her blood-covered shirt. The girls try their best to keep quiet, but it isn't long before one of the mercenaries wakes up and immediately starts to panic, and that's the moment that all hell suddenly breaks loose. Running for their lives, most of the soldiers try to escape into the jungle with one of the T-Rexes chasing after them. Roland's crazy ass actually tries to take one down, only to realize that Nick already unloaded his shells while he was distracted. So instead, he quickly loads up a high-powered tranq dart and fires it into the monster's side. As for the others, Sarah, Nick, and Kelly manage to take cover in a cave underneath a waterfall, along with Roland's paleontologist, Dr. Burke. Oh, they cower against the back wall, with the T-Rex snapping its teeth just a few inches from their faces, until suddenly Burke here notices that there's a snake crawling down his shirt. And panicking, he accidentally runs straight into its jaws. Just then, they see another shadow coming towards the cave, but it's only Malcolm, and he thanks them for saving his daughter as they run back to find the others. The rest of the group rushes into a field of tall grass, but they have no idea that something even worse is lurking inside. Before they know what's happening, a pack of raptors starts attacking the stragglers at the back of the line, causing the others to panic as they quickly are picked off one at a time. The chaos gives Malcolm and his group a chance to make it across the field, but they're in such a hurry that they accidentally stumble over the edge of a steep hill, causing the doctor to injure his leg on the way down. They're just a short distance from the compound, so Nick goes on ahead to see if he can call for help, with the others following behind as fast as they can. He makes it to the building in one piece, where luckily he's able to get the power back on, allowing him to use the radio to send out a distress call. Now it's only a matter of time before they're saved, but they still have to survive until help gets there. Alright, this was a major win for the group, but they're not safe yet. They just lost their entire army of meat shields and didn't even bother to pick up a weapon at any point during the chase. A nice 12 gauge would be very reassuring right about now, but at least they've managed to call for help, so things could still be a lot worse. Now, someone with Ludlow's resources is going to have the best extraction team that money can buy. He most likely has a rescue boat docked just off the coast, meaning that it shouldn't be more than like 20 minutes or so before their helicopter off the island arrives. When you think about it, they might think that they're safe because the raptors just fed on a bunch of Ludlow's men, but that's not necessarily true. These raptors aren't killing them for food, they're attacking because the humans are trespassing in their territory. So as long as Malcolm and the others are still within their range, they have to assume that the raptors are after them. The first thing that they should do is go back to an idea that we mentioned before and start rolling around in the mud and foliage to mask their scent. The raptors still have excellent hearing and low light vision, so you're not exactly putting on the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter here, but every little bit helps. They need to keep moving as fast as possible until they reach the facility, but once they get there, they can use the building for shelter and barricade themselves inside the most defensible room that they can find. They're also going to need something to defend themselves, but without any guns, they have to get more creative. If they can find any flammable chemicals, fire always makes a great deterrent, so I'd look for any chances to make a spray can flamethrower type situation, a Molotov cocktail, or even just a basic torch. Otherwise, their best bet is to combo a shield and a blunt weapon. I'd look for something like a car door, a sturdy piece of furniture, or even a trash can lid that I could use for a shield, and a heavy object like a pipe or crowbar to use for striking. There's no way in hell you're going to win the fight, so the goal is to protect yourself and fend off the raptor until you can escape, doing whatever you can to stay alive until the chopper gets there. The others follow Nick to the compound a short while later, but now there's no trace of him anywhere in sight. All of a sudden, a raptor leaps onto Sarah's back and pins her to the ground, but she's saved by her lucky backpack, giving her a chance to get away. They're quickly surrounded by the rest of the pack, forcing Sarah and Kelly to take cover inside a shed, while Malcolm locks himself in a nearby truck. But they don't have long before the dinosaurs get inside. Desperate to get away, they start digging a hole under the opposite wall, only for one of the raptors to almost take Kelly's head off as it lunges at them from the other side, leaving them no choice but to climb up towards the ceiling. Seeing an opportunity, Malcolm bails out of the truck and runs for the shed just as the dinosaur gets inside, but that's when Kelly here decides that it's time to lock in. Putting her gymnastics skills to the ultimate test, she straight up starts swinging around on the pipes like a character from Assassin's Creed, and using her momentum to kick the raptor straight through the damn wall, saving her father's life at the last second. Sarah here has to keep going up as the other two raptors start chasing after her, forcing her to jump onto the roof of another building. Hanging on, she pulls away enough tiles to send the raptor over the edge, causing the two dinosaurs to start fighting amongst themselves, and giving her another chance to escape. As luck would have it, she happens to fall through a window that leads straight to the helicopter landing pad just as the chopper arrives to pick them up. And regrouping with Nick, the four of them climb aboard as they're airlifted to safety, but if they think that they're leaving the dinosaurs behind, then they're in for a big surprise. It turns out that Malcolm and his group aren't the only ones who survived the island. Ludlow and Roland made it out too, but instead of learning their lesson, they've decided to keep going with their plans to open a new park right there in the heart of San Diego. And what better dino to start with than an adult T-Rex? Back in the States, he gathers all of the company's investors at the docks as they wait for the specimen to arrive, only to receive warning that the crew has stopped responding, and they're headed straight for land at a dangerously high rate of speed. All of a sudden, everyone scatters as the boat crashes into the docks at full steam, and when it finally comes to a stop, they're horrified to discover that the crew is already dead. Malcolm notices that there's a malfunction with the cargo doors, but before he can do anything to stop it, the idiots hit the button and open the cage, setting the T-Rex loose to rampage through the city. After learning that Ludlow already had the baby Rex brought to the stadium, Malcolm and Sarah realize that using it as bait is the only way to get its dad back under control. Racing to the facility, they grab Barney Jr. here and take off towards the sounds of the chaos, arriving just as the adult is rampaging through a crowded intersection. Finally, they're able to get the big one's attention and lead it back to the docks, leaving the baby in the cargo hold as they dive into the water. Noticing them, Ludlow runs below deck hoping to catch the infant before it escapes, but he's taken by surprise when its dad comes to get his revenge. And chomping down on his leg, it lets the baby start eating him instead, watching like a proud father as it brutally tears the man apart. Aw, nothing like a little father-son bonding between a Papa T-Rex and his boy, am I right or am I right? They grow up so fast, but you know who won't be getting any older? That's Ludlow here. So I've got some bad news for you, buddy. It looks like you just f***ed up. Yeah, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I guess this time that turned out to be Trizu. Your old Uncle Hammond here could have told you why tourists and dinosaurs don't mix, but no. Instead of learning from this guy's mistakes, you just decided to make even worse ones. I mean, we all saw how bad this went a few years ago when it was just a few scientists and dinosaurs on one island. So what the hell ever made you think that it was a good idea to bring an adult T-Rex straight to the third most populated city on the West Coast? And the craziest part is that you never had to go there. You could have just left the dinos alone to peacefully exist by themselves. And even then, I'm sure you could have figured out some way to make a profit without bringing them back to where the people are. But obviously, you're not the brightest bulb in the bunch if you thought that catching a baby T-Rex with your bare hands was a serious option. So I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that your billion-dollar idea turned into a total catastrophe. Score another L for the nerds and a dub for the dinos because Ludlow, you just f***ed up, bro. While they're distracted, Sarah grabs the tranquilizer gun, firing a dart straight into the big one's neck, and Malcolm quickly shuts the cargo doors, sealing them back inside. In the days after the incident, the Rexes are taken back to their home, and Hammond gets his wish to have the island established as a natural preserve, ensuring that the dinos will never be bothered again. But like Malcolm always said, life finds a way, and soon enough, an old friend of his is about to get dragged back into the nightmare. It's another 4 years before anyone's dumb enough to set foot on the island again, until one day, this kid Eric and his mom's boyfriend Ben sign up for an off-the-books parasailing tour that promises to get them as close to the dinosaurs as possible. They're soaring high above the island when the boat dives into a thick cloud of mist, and suddenly they begin to feel something strong pulling on the line. Looking down, they're horrified to see that the crew is gone, and they're headed straight for a patch of jagged rocks. Ben here manages to unlock the line just in time, but their only choice is to land in the jungle, and now they'll be lucky just to make it back alive. Back in Montana, we find Dr. Grant running a new dig site along with the help of his apprentice, Billy. The kid's a lot better with technology than his mentor, and using scans from a raptor's skull, he's able to 3D print a working replica of the dinosaur's resonating chamber, allowing them to mimic its calls. As usual, they're running dangerously low on funds, but that's when they get an unexpected visit from a mysterious businessman named John Kirby. The man invites them out to dinner with his wife Amanda, where he makes Grant an offer that he just can't refuse. They've reserved a plane to fly them over the island for a bird's eye view of the dinos, dinos, and they want Dr. Grant here to come along as their expert tour guide. He's obviously skeptical at first, but they're offering him a blank check to fund his research. And the next thing that he knows, he's on a plane heading back towards the island. Everything starts off according to plan, but strangely, it seems like their hosts are a lot more interested in looking for something else. All of a sudden, the pilot starts talking about landing the plane, and Grant here completely flips out as he gets ready to rush the cockpit. But a mysterious, Steven Seagal-looking dude knocks him out before he can interfere. By the time that Grant wakes up again, they're already on solid ground making all kinds of noise, and as soon as he warns them to cut it out, they hear something massive headed their way. A moment later, the two pilots come running out of the woods and tell everyone to get the hell back on the plane, preparing to take off again before the third guy has even made it back. They're speeding towards the end of the runway when Cooper here runs out waving them to stop, until suddenly an enormous Spinosaurus emerges from the jungle and snaps him up in its jaws, forcing the pilot to pull up before they crash straight into it. He can't possibly keep the plane steady, and they quickly plummet back into the forest completely out of control, crashing to a stop as the aircraft becomes wedged in the trees. Alright, I haven't seen a disaster this bad since the asteroid turned the dinos into fossil fuel. Dr. Grant here spent like his whole career studying extinct species, but now it looks like he's about to become one. Even though I feel like I literally just got done saying this, but Alan, you done f***ed up, my man. You know, I'm starting to think your theories about raptors being smarter than humans were actually right, because there's absolutely no way they'd be dumb enough to fall for the same trick twice. But here you are, supposedly the most brilliant mind in your field, and you just got right into the van with the free candy, like a kid whose parents never taught him about stranger danger. You haven't just seen this movie before, you literally starred in it, so when a dude shows up with an open checkbook and invites you to dinosaur hell, your answer should have been a firm no, with no further questions asked. But maybe the money had you interested, but would it have killed you to do just a little bit, like a teensy-weensy little bit of research to see if this guy was even legit? I don't care who they claimed to know in the Costa Rican government. They'd never get permission to fly as low as they want over a restricted area. I mean, that's the most obvious lie that I've ever heard, and it should have been your first sign that these two are full of shit. But 8 years after barely surviving the first time, here we are back on Dino Island, making the same mistakes all over again. And when that happens, there's only one thing left to say: Dr. Grant, you have majorly f***ed up. For a moment, it seems like they're lucky to be alive, but that's only until the Spino comes back to finish the job. Terrified, everyone scrambles back as it starts tearing off the front end of the plane, but the pilot Nash here isn't fast enough to get away. And grabbing him by the leg, it drags him outside and pins him down as it crushes his skull between its jaws. The others all hold on as the plane falls out of the tree, but the Spino comes back and pushes them with its snout, sending them rolling down the hill like a log until they finally crash to a stop. Leaning over them, it smashes its head straight through the hull as it tries to reach the people inside, but ends up getting stuck in the process, giving them a chance to run for safety as it turns around to chase after them. Thinking quickly, they're able to take cover in the dense trees, but just when it looks like they got away, they end up stumbling across another fresh kill. Suddenly, a damn T-Rex slowly rises up from behind the bushes, and Grant warns everyone to stay perfectly still. But of course, they immediately take off running, only to realize that they're headed straight for the Spino. Everyone dives for safety as the two monsters start throwing down, and the T-Rex starts the fight looking like it's about to make light work of its opponent. But everything changes when the Spino clamps down on its head and uses its powerful arms to snap the dinosaur's neck, giving the survivors a chance to escape while they're busy fighting with each other. Now that they finally have a chance to talk, Grant learns that he was tricked all along. It turns out that the Kirbys here were actually looking for their son Eric, the kid who's been missing on the island for almost 8 weeks. They needed Grant for his expertise in case they ran into any trouble, but now it looks like all 5 of them are as good as dead. And furious, he tells the couple that they can either start following his orders or figure out how to survive for themselves. Alright, so I never thought that I'd see a T-Rex lose its plot armor. I mean, it almost looks like there's a new king of the island, and somehow the Spino here is even more dangerous. This monster stands about 20 feet tall and weighs nearly 8 tons, with long-ass arms allowing it to manipulate objects and reach into tight spaces, making it bigger and stronger than the T-Rex in like every way. Now, the good news is that it probably won't go looking for more prey right away, so this gives the survivors like some time to work on their escape plan. Dr. Grant's idea to reach the coast is probably the best strategy because it gives them the highest chance of being spotted by a plane or a boat, but they still need to be careful. You see, people, Spino here was actually the first known semi-aquatic dinosaur, meaning it lived a life similar to modern crocodiles, hanging out mostly in freshwater rivers and swamps. Now, knowing this, Grant and his friends should avoid any bodies of fresh water and stick to the dense jungle instead, where the thick trees will make it harder for the Spino to get around. Now, earlier, the mercenary Cooper was holding the only weapon powerful enough to take a Spino down, a custom rifle loaded with high explosive rounds. Yeah, it seems like he lost it during the Spino attack, but if they're able to safely circle back near the airstrip, it could be worth it to see if the weapon still works. Then all they'd need is a one well-placed shot to eliminate the threat. But there was one thing, just one thing that Grant could have done before they ever left that would have completely changed the outcome, and here it is. Before getting on the plane, he should have told his old friend Dr. Sattler where he was going. Yeah, and to expect a call from him as soon as it landed. That way at least somebody would have known that they were missing and a rescue team would already be on the way. Buddy system. They're heading for the west coast when they come across Eric's parachute stuck in the trees, and their fixer Udesky here finds a camera on the ground nearby. Using the power from his flashlight, they're able to get a look at the footage, and it proves that their son was still alive when he landed on the island. The same can't be said for Amanda's boyfriend Ben, whose bloody skeleton falls out of the tree as they're about to pull down the parachute. Heartbroken, she takes off running into the jungle, where she makes an even more horrifying discovery. The place where they landed is smack in the middle of a raptor nest, so unless they want to end up like her ex, they need to get the hell out of there before the parents come back. It wasn't long before they spot the old InGen facility at the bottom of the valley, and they quickly decide to check it out, hoping that it might at least give them a little shelter. The phones are obviously dead, and there's nothing left of the original crew besides the failed experiments that they left behind, but they have no idea that they're already being watched. Going down the line of test tubes, Amanda comes to a stop in front of the one where it looks like a full-grown raptor is floating inside, until all of a sudden it whips around and lunges straight for her throat, barely missing her as it gets stuck between the pods. Horrified, they all start running deeper into the facility until they eventually wind up cornered in a room full of cages, and the raptor goes straight for Billy and Amanda as they take cover behind one of the gates. Unable to reach them, it then decides to go over the top, but as soon as it takes its feet off the ground, they use the opportunity to push it against the corner and leave it trapped inside. This gives everyone another chance to escape, but as they go, Grant notices that the raptor is calling out for help. The survivors flee back into the jungle with an entire pack of raptors now hot on their trail, using a herd of plant eaters for cover as they look for safety in the trees. Most of them manage to get away, but poor old Udesky here isn't fast enough, and pinning him to the ground, the raptor digs its claw deep into his back before abruptly disappearing into the forest. Looking down from the treetops, the others notice that Udesky is still alive, but as Amanda rushes down to help him, she accidentally loses her footing and nearly falls right out of the tree. Just then, two of the raptors come storming back and start snapping at her head, revealing that they only left him alive as a trap. Seeing that it didn't work, the pack alpha calls the others back to regroup, and one of them brutally snaps the man's neck before leaving. Clearly worried, Grant watches them from behind a tree as the raptors disappear. Only when he looks back up again, one of them snarls in his face from just a few inches away. He's completely surrounded in just a matter of seconds, but just when it looks like he's cooked, somebody throws a gas grenade into the circle, driving the raptors back just in time. Suddenly, a random kid in a ghillie suit grabs his hand, leading him into a hidden shelter in the back of an overturned truck. It's the couple's son, Eric, who's been surviving on his own this whole time, and Grant here is absolutely shocked to learn that he is still alive. All right. This 12-year-old kid just made every scientist or mercenary that's ever come to this island look like fucking clowns. He's been surviving here for 8 weeks by himself with nothing but creativity and balls of steel. Okay, so if I were Dr. Grant here, I'd use the rest of the night to, learn everything I could from a real dino expert. I knew this kid was nice the minute he showed up looking like Captain Price from Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and he's not dressing like that just for the fashion. He made himself a custom ghillie suit, which is a special type of, camouflage that uses actual leaves and moss from the jungle to help him blend in with the environment. The raptors, as we know, have excellent eyesight and they use their vision as their primary sense for hunting prey, but this camouflage breaks up his silhouette and allows him to hide in plain sight, directly countering the raptor's greatest strength. So before leaving the trailer, Grant should spend the night building one of the suits for himself, that way they'll both stand a much better chance of making it to shore. Now besides vision, smell was probably their second greatest strength, but Eric has a way to counter that as well. Somehow he managed to collect a bottle full of T-Rex urine, and he mentions that the raptors are scared of it, but the Spino is attracted to it, so not using this to their advantage would be a huge mistake. Before leaving in the morning, they should soak a few rags in the T-Rex urine and spread them around the raptor's territory. This should frighten the raptors, causing them to retreat even deeper into hiding, but also lure the Spino towards the interior of the island, opening up a clear path for them to head for the coast. But besides that, there's still one other option that they should keep in mind. Earlier, they saw how the raptors use Udesky as bait to set up an ambush, so if Grant suspects a trap, he should use his raptor call to trick the dinos into blowing their cover, allowing him to find out if the area is still safe to pass. At sunrise the next day, Grant and this kid set out in search of his parents. Reaching the edge of a steep gorge, they spot an old barge down in the river below and decide that it might be their best chance to get to safety. They've been trekking through the jungle for a while when Eric hears the sound of his father's satellite phone ringing somewhere nearby. At the same time, the parents hear their son calling their names and go running towards the sound of his voice. They meet up on opposite sides of a giant fence, but strangely, Paul here says that he hasn't seen the phone since the plane crash. That's when they hear it ringing right behind them, and turning around, they're horrified to see the Spinosaurus watching them from the edge of the trees. It must have swallowed the phone during the attack, and running for their lives, they're able to make it through a gap in the fence with only inches to spare. For a moment, it looks like they're safe, but the Spino builds up speed and crashes straight through the fence, forcing them to take cover inside of a nearby observatory. Luckily, they're still able to shut the heavy steel door in time, and the Spino eventually decides to move on, but they still have a long way to go before they're safe. Now, back during the chaos of the first raptor attack, Billy here dropped a bag that Dr. Grant has been holding onto ever since. Taking a look inside, he's furious to learn that his apprentice stole 2 raptor eggs straight from their nest. It turns out that Billy here thought that he could sell the eggs to help fund their projects, but now he's put them in a tough position. Grant thinks about dumping the eggs at first, but it seems like the raptors know they have them, so he decides that it's better to hold on to them for now. With Grant leading the way, the group goes down a long spiral staircase until they reach a metal platform. The only way forward is across a sketchy-ass bridge where the fog is so thick that they can't even see the other side. And telling the others to wait there, Grant heads across first to make sure that it's safe. He makes it to the other side without any trouble, shouting back for the others to cross one at a time. But just as Eric gets ready to make the trip, he notices some suspicious-looking droppings all over the railing. All of a sudden, a giant Pteranodon swoops down from above and snatches the boy in its claws, carrying him back to its nest to feed to its babies. There's no way for the others to reach him, but that's when Billy decides to use the parachute to base jump into the gorge. Like what? Aiming straight for the nest, he gets there just in time for the kid to grab on, but they're swarmed by another group of flying reptiles that end up tearing a hole in the chute. Once they're low enough, Eric lets go and falls into the water, while at the same time, the platform gives out underneath his parents, sending them tumbling into the river as well. Billy tries his best to stay in control, but he eventually winds up stuck on the cliffs, and the Pteranodons are already closing in. Unbuckling the strap, he plummets into the water just as Grant and Paul rush over to save him, but they're far too late, and there's nothing that they can do as he's viciously attacked, leaving them with no choice but to dive to safety before the monsters kill them next. Oh boy, just when it seemed like things on this island couldn't get any worse, it turns out that these idiots at InGen decided that their genetic abominations needed wings. They just walked straight into an aviary full of nesting Pteranodons, one of the most terrifying species on the entire island, and as usual, the scientists beefed these monsters up compared to their real-life counterparts, giving them a wingspan of around like 30 feet, standing roughly 8 feet tall and weighing at least 150 pounds. That's big as f. Those powerful wings allow them to swoop down at around like 40 miles per hour, so getting attacked by one is like getting hit by a speeding car that just appeared straight out the sky. Now, you gotta think about this, right? Like when a predatory bird swoops down to attack, they typically aim for the center mass, so running away in a straight line with no cover is like the worst thing you could possibly do. As soon as Eric noticed that the creature was after him, he should have immediately dropped flat on his stomach, causing it to overshoot him and forcing it to circle back around, giving him another chance to reach safety. Same goes for Billy, except his mistake was even worse. At least Eric was caught in the open with nowhere else to go, but Billy here chose to run in a straight line through knee-deep water with no overhead cover. And at that point, you might as well just give up and let them eat you. The Pteranodon's biggest weakness is that they need a clear shot to line up a strike, so instead of getting out of the water and leaving himself exposed, Billy should have held his breath and stayed underwater for as long as he could, while looking for a place along the cliffs to take cover. Or he could have gone for the dense foliage along the riverbank instead, crawling down in between vines and logs to protect himself from overhead attacks. But now that they've finally reached the boat, all that's left to do is travel downriver until they hit the shore. Once there, they should immediately find some high ground to set up camp and spell out SOS in huge letters using logs or rocks. That way, a passing plane might find them before the dinos do. But like we mentioned before, the Spino loves fresh water, so you can probably guess who they're about to run into next. The survivors make it to the barge and start heading downriver towards the coast until sometime later that night, they hear the dreaded ringtone coming from somewhere around the bend. Luckily, it's just a giant pile of steaming Spinosaur crap, and after digging around inside, they're finally able to recover the phone. Just then, another massive meat eater approaches them from the trees, but after taking one sniff of their new cologne, it turns around and disappears back into the jungle. Using the phone, Grant's able to get a call through to the only person who he can trust, his old friend Ellie, but unfortunately, her young son Charlie is the one who picks up. Suddenly, they notice something scaring away the fish, but before they're able to get the boat started, the Spinosaurus rises out of the water and starts trying to eat them alive. Their only choice is to hide inside the cage where it can't reach them, and frustrated, it drags the entire thing into the water with the four of them still trapped inside. At the last moment, Grant manages to shout the words, "Site B," just before they're pulled under, and that's all that Ellie needs to hear to know exactly what to do. As the cage sinks towards the bottom, Paul manages to get out and start swimming for a nearby crane that's sticking out of the water. Climbing to the top, he starts shouting and waving his arms as a distraction, getting the Spino's attention so the others can swim to safety. Just when it looks like he's done for, Grant gets the flare gun and starts firing it at the monster's side, igniting a puddle of fuel that's covering the surface and scaring it back into the jungle. For a moment, they aren't sure if Paul made it, but they are relieved to see that he's alive. At sunrise the next morning, they haven't gone far when they hear the rumble of the ocean crashing against the coast, but just when it seems like they're home free, the raptors suddenly emerge from the bushes to block their path. They are completely surrounded, with like no hope of escaping unless they figure something out quick. But that's when Dr. Grant comes up with an idea. Telling the others to kneel down, he gets out the eggs and hands them over to Amanda, who cautiously places them on the ground at the raptor's feet. At the same time, Grant uses the 3D printed resonator to mimic a raptor distress call, and somehow it actually freaking works. Taking the eggs, the raptors quickly turn away and disappear back into the jungle, and that's when they hear the sound of a helicopter approaching from the other side of the trees. Running towards the noise, they rush onto a beach where they find the only thing scarier than the dinosaurs is the motherfucking US military, and it looks like their lives are saved. Climbing aboard the chopper, they're relieved to find that Billy is still in one piece, and he even managed to save Dr. Grant's iconic hat. It turns out that they never fully closed the Pteranodon cage, because as they're headed back towards civilization, they see a group of reptiles flying beside them. So, in the end, it looks like humans and dinosaurs might finally learn to coexist after all. Jurassic Park 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, now that was a fun video to make. Man, Steven Spielberg really jumped it off, huh? When you think about the fact that he made Schindler's List and freaking Jurassic Park in the same year, Mans was on a whole nother vibe that year, bro. The sequel, you know, it had some metal moments. Part 3, anyways, the new Jurassic World movie is right around the corner, and I'm super duper hyped for it. I know y'all seen Jurassic Park 1. Did you see 2? Have you seen 3? Are you hyped for the new Jurassic Park? Is there anything else I missed in this episode? You gotta let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. Check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.